Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Gaura Hari ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shunvatam Swagata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Ridyantasto Hi Abhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. We are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, Chanting the Song Sung by Lord Shiva. Text 37. Svarga Parvarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namo Hiranya Varyaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Svarga Pavarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namo Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Svarga Pavarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namo Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Svarga Pavarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namo Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Svarga Pavarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namo Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Svarga Pavarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namo Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Svarga Pavarga Dvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namo Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Svarga, the heavenly planets. Apavarga, the path of liberation. Dvaraya, unto the door of. Nityam, eternally. Suchi Sade, unto the most purified. Namaha, my obeisances unto you. Namaha, my obeisances. Hiranya, gold. Viryaya, semen. Chaturhotraya, the Vedic sacrifices of the name. Tantave, unto the one who expands. Translation: My Lord, O Aniruddha, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You are always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen which is like gold, and thus in the form of fire you help the Vedic sacrifices, beginning with Chaturhotra. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. Purport: the word Svarga indicates a position in the higher or heavenly planetary systems, and the word Apavarga means liberation. Those who are attached to the karma khandya activities described in the Vedas are actually entangled in the three modes of material nature. The Bhagavad Gita therefore says that one should be above the dominion of fruitive activities. There are different kinds of liberation or mukti. The best mukti is engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. Not only does Lord Aniruddha help fruitive actors by elevating them to the higher planetary systems, but he also helps the devotee engage in devotional service by dint of his inexhaustible energy. Just as heat is the source of material energy, the inspiration of Lord Aniruddha is the energy by which one can engage in executing devotional service. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Svarga Parvaga Dwaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha, Namo Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave. My Lord, O Aniruddha, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You are always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen, which is like gold, and thus in the form of fire, you help the Vedic sacrifices beginning with Chaturhotra. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. Hare Krishna. Before I speak, I always ask the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas. Please bless me to speak something purifying to my heart and inspiring for our devotional service. So we are continuing with the very beautiful prayers of Lord Shiva. He has met the Prachetas and he is engaging with them, and now we are, in the midst of his song that he is singing in glorification of the Lord. So the purport touches on a few things, in particular, what real freedom is, what real liberation or mukti is, there are different kinds of mukti, different kinds of liberations, different kinds of freedom. There's freedom from things and freedom to do things. But Prabhupada is saying that the best kind of liberation, the best kind of freedom is when we engage ourselves fully in the service of Krishna. And in particular, in today's verse, Lord Shiva is addressing a very particular form of the Lord called Aniruddha. We'll touch on Aniruddha a little bit as well. But basically, from the verse, we can also understand that Krishna is truly the controller and the facilitator of anything and everything that you want in life. Whether you want liberation, whether you want to go to different planetary systems, whether you want to improve your situation in this way, whatever it is you want in life, Krishna is the facilitator of everything. And because we as living entities have that minute independence, Krishna is not going to force us to do something, even though he knows what it is that is best for us. He will let us have our choice in the matter. And whatever it is, he will always be there. Because as the verse is stating, yes, Lord Aniruddha is always within the pure heart of the living entity, but he is within the heart, even if it's not pure. The Lord resides in the heart as well. But in the case of the Lord's devotees, why are they more special? Because they look upon the Lord with love, right? You know, you could say like, if you're going to quote like something like Animal Farm, you know, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. All hearts are equal to the Lord, but some are more equal to him in that way. But whatever it is you want, Krishna is the ultimate authority. And even in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that no matter what it is your condition is in life, just come to him. Whether it's a material desire or whatever it is, whether it's devotional service, liberation, material advancement, he says it's all right, whatever it is that you want, just at least come to me because I am the ultimate on everything, right? When we think about the heavenly planetary systems, Svarga as they are called, many people have an aspiration to improve our situation in life, and maybe we would like to go there. But the problem with the higher planetary systems is that you can't stay there forever. At some point, you engage and you acquire all this through, Prabhupada is speaking about karma kandya activities, fruitive activities. You incur all of this piety, and it, you know, by dint of that piety, yes, you can go to the higher planetary systems, but at some point, it's going to run out. And then what happens when it runs out? You have to come back down again because, well, the bank balance is empty. You know, you're poor again, basically, right? You can't stay there forever. It's like how in the material world, those of us who work, we work so hard and we save up all our annual leave and all our money-wise so we can go on annual vacation, on holiday. That once a year, 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it is that we get off. We work so hard for the whole year to save up for that holiday. And then you go on holiday, and then what happens? Your money runs out. You have to come back, you have to go back to work, and start all over again, the cycle. We work hard, we save up, we go on holiday, money runs out. And again, you're just caught in this rat race. So Prabhupada says that a truly intelligent person is not satisfied if actually this is the whole point of existence, to work hard, to go on holiday, for money to run out, to work hard again, to go on holiday, you know. An intelligent person would never be satisfied if this was the point of life, because a truly intelligent person would want something permanent from where they don't have to come back down again. And that is why devotional service or engagement in Krishna consciousness or just a relationship with Krishna is the best kind of freedom. Because once you have that, as Prabhupada says, there's no more coming down, you know, from that. Because a truly intelligent person, Prabhupada is speaking in the purport about people who are engaged in these activities are just so entangled in the material nature. But But true liberation means freedom from these laws of nature. And we know that Prabhupada does speak about there are 5 kinds of liberation, having a form that's similar to the Lord, residing on the same planet, merging into, the Brahmajyoti, so on, the 5 kinds of mukti. But a devotee does not accept any of those if they do not offer any opportunity for devotional service. They will happily just reject all of that. And I think also there's that verse where for the person who engages in the devotional service of the Lord, liberation herself knocks on the door of the devotee and willingly comes to that devotee. In a morning class in Hawaii, Srila Prabhupada said that ISKCON is the stock exchange of devotional service. What does that mean, the stock exchange? People are meant to come to our temples, our communities, and they are meant to find spiritual engagement here, actually. People are meant to come here to be engaged, not to take from the temple and just, It's a stock exchange of devotional service. People are meant to come here for practical spiritual engagement, right? And it's the total opposite of, say, impersonalism. An impersonalist will feel that if I shut off from the material world, if I don't engage with outsiders, if I just go hide in the Himalayas somewhere, or, shut off all of my senses, I will find perfection in life. Because the world, the environment is so troublesome, right? That the only answer is that I need to shut off and cut off from my senses, from the world, from everywhere, to find elevation or liberation in life. But Krishna says no, it's actually the complete opposite. You don't find perfection by shutting off. You find engagement or perfection by doing things. And in particular, by doing things for me, by engaging in activities for me where I am the center of everything. When you engage in anything while remembering me, that is actually the perfection of life. So yeah, whatever it is you want, and it's okay if it's something material for now. We are coming from so many billions, millions, countless lifetimes. We are carrying so much in our heart. We don't actually know the extent to what we are carrying, right? That unconsciously is there. Whatever it is, at least come to Krishna with it and trust and have faith and pray that He will purify us to bring us to the point of wherever it is we need to be. And we see the final sentence of the purport. Prabhupada is saying, just as heat is the source of material energy, the inspiration of Lord Aniruddha is the energy by which one can engage in executing devotional service. Krishna is the source of our inspiration. In this particular case, Lord Aniruddha, He is the source of our enthusiasm or He should be the source of our enthusiasm for whatever it is in life. We should keep Him in the forefront of our mind. For those of us that have received a Brahminical initiation, there is this one word in our Gayatri mantra, prachodayat. The word prachodayat means to enthuse, to be enthused. The entire Gayatri mantra, you could say, is a prayer to different aspects of the Lord to be enthused in our service, in our life, in our engagement. You don't just have to be a Brahminical initiated person to pray that way, to be enthused by the Lord. That is also the essence of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Please engage me in your devotional service. I want to be engaged in your devotional service. That means I need to have some happiness in doing it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be very much interested in what it is that I need to do. This enthusiasm, we can pray for it because it comes from the Lord's mercy on us, and it comes by our willingness to try. Even if it's the fact that we may not be good at what it is we're doing in devotional service, but the fact that we are willing to do something and step out of our material comfort zone for Krishna, he will see that and we will find enthusiasm. And we are also meant to find enthusiasm in the community of devotees with each other. We are always meant to be encouraging towards each other in our execution of devotional service. So, as I said in today's verse, Lord Shiva is praying to a very particular form of the Lord, or he's praying to this form of the Lord, but he names this form of the Lord in the verse Aniruddha. We may be familiar with this name Aniruddha from the, if you're familiar with the philosophy, Lord Vishnu, well, there's Lord Krishna, and then from him there's Mahavishnu, and then, the quadruple expansions, and then so on and so forth. It's a very technical thing, but the quadruple expansions, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, like that. So we're maybe familiar with the name from that context. But basically, this particular form of the Lord, and it's very interesting how each form of the Lord has their own personality, their own characteristics, and their own purpose as well, their own function. So we see today, Lord Aniruddha, one of his purposes or characteristics is that he is the inspiration for the living entity. He is the energy that we use to engage in devotional service. He is the inspiration behind enthusiasm for the Vaishnavas. And in particular, there's, I think, a part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it may be the 3rd canto, as well as the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where actually Prabhupada describes each Vishnu form of the Lord, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, so on. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Gaura Hari ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. How you can actually, if you're looking at a picture, for example, of this four-armed expansion of the Lord, how you can even identify which expansion it is. Because each Vishnu form of the Lord holds the articles, the disc, the club, the lotus, the conch shell, in a particular way, in a particular order, and that identifies which form it is. So Aniruddha, for example, in the lower right hand, he holds the Sudarshan chakra, the club in the upper right hand, the upper left hand, the conch shell, and in the lower left hand, the lotus. So if you ever see a picture of the four-armed Vishnu form, you can reference it in the Veda base, see what order the form is holding it in, and you'll see actually who that is. So it's very interesting. Each expansion of Krishna has their own personality. It's not just that Krishna is copy and paste. Yes, I've got unlimited forms and unlimitedly they're all the same. Even, Krishna himself in his original form, he has so many names, and each name describes a particular context of his personality. The son of Yashoda, the son of Vasudeva, the lover of the cows, the protector of Govardhan Hill. So many names just for him in his original form. What to speak then of all of the expansions? Like, many of us are very big followers of Lord Nrsingadev, right? Lord Nrsingadev, when it's his appearance day, we recite, the 108 names of Lord Nrsingadev. Again, each name, a different aspect of his personality, a different characteristic. And that's just one incarnation. So Krishna, we can see in this way how unlimited he is in his capacity to be understood and approached and worshipped in that way. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Lila, the 5th chapter, text 41, Srila Prabhupada in the purport actually describes a bit more about Lord Aniruddha, that is the form of the Lord that Lord Shiva is praying to. So Prabhupada says in the purport that Aniruddha, the 4th of the quadruple expansions, is worshipped by great sages and psychologists as the principle of the mind. His complexion is similar to the bluish hue of a blue cloud, and he engages in the maintenance of the cosmic manifestation as the super soul of Dharma, the deity of religiosity, and the Manus, the progenitors of mankind, and the Devatas, the demigods. I always found that very interesting. I think in one of the other purports further down the line, Prabhupada is describing Lord Aniruddha and how he is actually the controlling deity of the mind of the living entity. So if anybody has any mental issues, you know who to go to in particular. You can come to the Lord, but in particular, go to Lord Aniruddha. He's the controlling deity of the mind. And Prabhupada, I think, also describes him as the Lord of the psychologists, because the psychologists are interested in how the mind works. So Prabhupada always says, I think he says in one of the further purports down that, if you're at all interested in understanding the mind fully, completely, you should pray to Lord Aniruddha in that way. And Lord Aniruddha is actually, Prabhupada says in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he is actually, when we see yogis that are sitting in meditation for many, many thousands of years and, they're focusing on the Lord in the heart, it is actually Lord Aniruddha, which is the particular form that they are meant to be focusing on. We know there are some yogis who just, meditate on the voidness or nothingness like that. And Prabhupada says in a purport in the 26th chapter that meditation upon voidness is a modern invention of the fertile brain of some speculator. So really it has no foundational basis of anything. Because actually the process of yoga meditation should be fixed upon the form of Aniruddha. By meditating on Aniruddha, one can become free from the agitation of acceptance and rejection. When one's mind is fixed upon Aniruddha, one gradually becomes God-realized. He approaches the pure status of Krishna consciousness, which is the ultimate goal of yoga. I thought that was very interesting, that simply by meditating in particular on the form of Lord Aniruddha, by keeping him in the forefront of our mind and engaging in this way and praying to him, we can become free from the agitation of acceptance and rejection. And that is a big thing. You may think acceptance and rejection is just something, but if you actually think about it, everything we do in this world is to be accepted by society, by our loved ones, by our community, by everyone. But even just to accept ourselves for ourselves is so hard. We just want to, we engage with the world. We just want to we want to fit in. We want to belong somewhere. We want to be accepted. But because we are so covered by our material consciousness and our material engagement, and yes, earlier how I was saying that part of the purport is highlighting how Krishna is actually the ultimate authority and the controller of everything. Whatever it is you want, you should actually just approach him. Start by approaching him. Don't try and just do it on your own, because that's actually why we are all in the material world. Because we want to be God. We want to live separately from Krishna. So we come here to try and do that, and then we just get more and more entangled in the modes of material nature. But Prabhupada is saying in this Srimad Bhagavatam purport that simply by meditating on the form of Lord Aniruddha, we gradually become free from this agitation. And Prabhupada is particularly using the word agitation. What does it mean, agitation? Agitation is something troubling. When something is bothering you, when something is troubling you a lot. Agitation. It's not a very positive word. It doesn't have very positive context, right? And in that verse that Prabhupada is commenting on, it's a verse that's describing the process of meditation and yoga. The verse says that Lord Aniruddha is to be found very slowly. by the yogis. Krishna, or in particular Aniruddha, he's not someone you find instantly. I remember, I think it was it last week? Madhurya Kadambini was giving the morning class, and she was speaking about it's the age of instant gratification, right? Social media is, you just want things instantly, and you see as people engage, like for example with something like social media more and more and more, everyone's attention span is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You'll see, like if you watch a reel, right? The length of a reel is like 30 seconds, because that is the attention span of someone in the world. They cannot concentrate or watch something for longer than 30 seconds. In the past, you could watch maybe like a 2-hour something, and you could sit through that and be fine. But as Kali Yuga progresses, your capacity to process information is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter, and you just want things quicker and quicker and quicker. You send a message to someone at midnight and you expect a reply the day before, instantly. But Krishna doesn't work that way. Lord Aniruddha, or Prabhupada is saying in particular, he is found slowly by the yogis. Why? Because he is to be found, as today's verse says, within the pure heart of the living entity. And the process of purification takes time. And maybe that's one reason why people don't want to engage in spiritual processes as time goes by. Because purification takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, it takes you having a real good look at yourself in the mirror, admitting your faults, admitting where you need to improve in your life, and putting in the effort to do that. And people don't want to do that, right? Because there's already so much suffering in the world. Life is already so hard. Work is already so intense. I've got a manager that's on my case all the time. Why? Why do I need to put in this extra, more effort? It's fine. I'm happy the way I am. I'll just live in that way, right? But that is the process of Krishna consciousness. It is very fulfilling, it's very enthusing, it's very purifying, it's very satisfying at the end of the day, because it is bringing us step by step closer to our real identity as a spirit soul. And coming back to that identity takes a lot of time, because like I was saying, we don't know what it is we're coming with through our long-winded journey in the material energy. The dust on the mirror of the heart is very, very thick. We don't know how many layers there are, so we have to keep on wiping, keep on wiping, keep on wiping. And that is the process of devotional service, the process of cleaning the heart. So just to round up, I thought I would share, because we're rounding up by talking about Lord Aniruddha and how Prabhupada is saying that he is the Lord of the mind, of the living entity. I found a very interesting article called Transcendental Psychology. It was written many, many years ago by a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who has since passed away like in the early 2000s, Suhotra Das. And this disciple of Prabhupada, he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was a sannyasi who fell. He was, when he passed, he was not a sannyasi at that point. But he was a very sincere, dedicated disciple of Srila Prabhupada who traveled and did a lot of preaching. And he himself, I think, suffered with depression, So he wrote a very interesting article called Transcendental Psychology, which I thought I would just share to conclude. I won't read the entire article. It is very long, so if anyone would like it, they can just message me and I'll share the link, but just some points to highlight. So Prabhu says that, and this was written like, maybe like, I think he passed in 2007, so maybe like 2003 or 4, something like that. That as the Hare Krishna movement matures and grows with time, there are many of us who feel the need to actually try and maturely understand the mind, right? Not just suppress it. Because if you came to the Hare Krishna movement maybe, 10, 20, 15 years ago, there was a very, the mood at the time was very much, we suppress our material desires. We just push them aside. We ignore them. We, the mind is something that needs to be beaten 1,000 times a day because it's like a dog that runs here and there. There's a very heavy kind of understanding of what the mind was. And somewhere down the line, as the movement matures and grows, we understood that, maybe that's not the best or the most healthiest approach for devotees to engage in. Because Prabhupada was very, in his purports, in his presentations, he very much emphasized that yes, we do need to discriminate between the mind, the intelligence, the false ego, and the real self. There's a distinction to be made amongst all of these things. But when we really have a look at it, we also need to understand that the mind is a very real thing, right? Yes, it's subtle. It doesn't have a gross form like I have a body. You won't see the mind the way you see my arm, for example. It's subtle. But the mind, if you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is a part of creation, right? It is listed there. So the mind, even though very subtle, it has a lot of substance. And we don't have to go into the details of actually how much damage an uncontrolled mind can do, even though very, very subtle. We see it has a lot of weight, it has a lot of substance. It's not something meaningless that can be just ignored and pushed aside. And this is an excerpt from a purport of Srila Prabhupada, right? That since the mind is actually the product of the mode of goodness, if it is fixed upon the Lord of the mind, Aniruddha, then the mind can be changed to Krishna consciousness. It is stated by Narottam Das Thakur that we always have desires. Desire cannot be stopped. But if we transfer our desire to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the perfection of life. As soon as the desire is transferred to lording over the material nature, it becomes contaminated by matter. That is the whole beginning of the problem. When we try to engage it in a way it should not be engaged in, to lord over material creation and matter in that way, that's when contamination sets in. And in another purport, a few chapters later, Prabhupada says, the essential point is that the mind, which is contaminated by material attraction, has to be bridled. Bridled means, when you're riding a horse and you put that, like the saddle and things on the horse, and you put the thing in the mouth, that's a bridle. So you hook it up to control it. Bridled and concentrated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just from that, we can understand that the mind, at its very foundational level, is something that actually comes from the mode of goodness. And that is the energy of Lord Aniruddha, who is the Lord of the mind. Prabhupada is saying in today's verse, the inspiration of Lord Aniruddha is the energy we use to engage in devotional service. And when we engage our mind the way it's meant to be engaged, that is what makes the transformation of Krishna consciousness. If we want to do that, we have to try and channel the flow of the desires that we have towards Krishna. Not to cut off the desires that we have or pretend that they don't exist or, fight with them in some way. So there's no question of how we, devotees, we have a certain kind of language that we use. There's no question of controlling the mind, fixing the mind, pacifying the mind without actually reforming or changing the kind of desires that we have into something that is more beneficial to our life. So the quality of the mind that we have is based on the quality of the desires that we have, actually, right? Because the original condition of the mind, we know, of our existence, of our soul, is to be engaged in Krishna consciousness. And when that original condition is contaminated, like we were saying, why are we in the material world? Because we have that desire, that contaminating desire to be independent from Krishna. When that contamination sets in, that's when everything basically goes haywire. But the mind is very real because ultimately it is the energy of the super soul. The mind will move according to the desires that we have. So it is our desire or the present state of our consciousness which complicates everything, which needs to be purified. And Prabhupada is speaking in the third canto purport about bridling the mind, right? Hooking it up, controlling it. So if we want to engage in trying to control the mind, I'm not going to say control the mind because that's very hard. It's a dual process. It involves something negative and something positive, right? Negative in inverted commas. When we say negative, bridling, putting a restraint on our engagement. Don't let the mind, and Prabhupada says, when he's speaking about chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, how often he says, when your mind wanders, bring it back. Just always bring it back to the holy name, to what you're hearing. So this aspect of constantly reeling your mind in all the time sounds very taxing, to be very honest. A lot of hard work. I'm not sure if I'm up for it, to be honest. Right, this constant reeling the mind in. Where are you going? No, come back. That's not what we want for our life. We want to go this way. We're not going that way. It's like, a little child, when you take them to the candy store. And why? It's psychology, right? Why, when you're going to the checkout, what is it on either side of you? Sweets, chips, chocolate. That's psychology, right? There's something called advertising psychology, right? They know. and it's all, and the rack, it's like from the bottom of the floor all the way up. Why? So the child, whatever size this child is, they can see it, right? And it's going to pull them in this way, that way, that way. That's what our mind is like, actually. It sees this, it sees that, and we have to constantly bring it back. No, we're not doing that today. Maybe another time, maybe later. Like Haridas Thakur and the prostitute. She approached him and he kept saying, okay, when I finish my rounds. He never finished his rounds, But she was purified by that, right? So this constantly pulling. And then what is the positive aspect, if that is the negative, the reeling it in? The positive is engaging yourself in doing something, right? Because what is the quote? An idle mind is the devil's workshop. So you can't just be pulling in your mind and then not doing anything with it. Because then it's going to get frustrating and your desires are just going to grow and grow and grow. You have to do something. You have to keep busy. You have to keep engaged. And that is why we engage practically in devotional service, in higher activity, in spiritual thought and philosophy and discussion. But we have to do both together. You can't say, okay, I'm going to reel you in, and once you're tightly secured, then we're going to do something. No, you have to do it together, right? But that's also hard sometimes because on one level, we know what it is our desires are in life, what it is we want. We're conscious about those things. But Prabhupada gives the example of a pond, right? If you're looking at a pond and you see the surface and it's pretty still, and that's basically what you're conscious of. But then every now and then these bubbles just come and they pop and they pop and they pop. You don't know when the bubble is coming. You don't know how many bubbles are coming. They're just coming, bloop, 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 bloop. That's all your unconscious desires. That's everything that's inside of you that you don't know about. How many unconscious desires do you have? I don't know, right? And sometimes you'll only know when you're in a particular situation, right? Sometimes you think, for example, you're a pretty chill person, you don't get angry, it's fine. But put you in a situation and something just comes out of you, right? And sometimes desires, unconscious desires are like that. You'll be walking down the street and something pops up in your mind and you're like, where did that come from? Right? It's been there, but it's been unconscious, right? And the mind, Prabhupada speaks about in one of the purports, like how the mind can even just manufacture all these things, right? During the day, you're sharing a conversation, right? And someone's talking about gold in one conversation, and you hear some other conversation and someone's talking about a mountain. And then when you go to sleep, you dream about a golden mountain, right? Your mind is just putting all of these things together to create these impressions. So it's like your mind is like this TV that never switches off. It's just constantly playing things and playing things and playing things and analyzing and playing things. And just by the power of our mind, think about it. The mind is so strong. Just with the mind, you can see, you can hear, you can taste, you can even smell something. Just from the mind's creation of a thought, right? You can feel things that's not actually in front of you. You can imagine all of these things. That's the power, actually, that the mind has. And as spiritual practitioners, yes, we try very hard to control the external environment. As a devotee, yes, you can live in the temple, you can rise early, you can control what it is you listen to, what it is you watch, the conversations you have. Externally, as spiritual practitioners, we put a lot of emphasis into this, right? But the mind can conjure up so many things without even you seeing something in front of your eye. Your imagination plays a big part there, right? And in the 7th canto, Prabhupada is speaking about the mind. It's in relation to, conversations that Prahlad Maharaj is having. And Prabhupada says, it's actually a footnote to one of the word-for-word translations. Prabhupada says, the mind is always planning how to remain in the material world and struggle for existence. The mind is always planning this. So purifying the mind is not just about controlling everything that we know. Purifying the mind is also about uncovering what it is within the subconscious, the unconscious, addressing those things that may be sitting there, what I don't see that's coming out, and engaging with it in a healthy way, right? Because we know that in the process of devotional service, or theoretically we know this, in the process of bhakti, everything can be engaged. There's nothing which cannot be engaged in the service of the Lord. Everything can find some use in Krishna's service, right? And especially the mind. It's not something to be ignored and suppressed. We need to start engaging with it as an instrument to be refined in our service. And when we actually start seeing the mind as something that can help us, in one sense, that we can use as a tool in devotional service, when we pick up in a mature way, okay, why is it that I'm having some mental disturbances? Why am I having these repeated negative patterns, this inner conflict, it keeps coming up? It's not just some accident or some punishment. Krishna is bored and he wants to just punish us in some way. That's not who Krishna is, right? It's a result. There is something in my consciousness that is misdirected, that isn't in alignment with who I really am. And I shouldn't ignore this. I should engage with it. I should work on it. I should improve, right? Work through it. So ultimately, I can work through my misidentification and I can take the steps that I need towards my true spiritual identity as a servant of Krishna. Because a devotee understands that full freedom and full liberation comes when I do my best to live in my spiritual identity as a servant of Krishna. Prabhupada said that if we just live our life thinking, Gopi Bhatur Padakamalaya Dasa Dasa Anudasa, that I'm a servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of Krishna, that is all I need, actually, rather than to just try and control everything. And one step, today's verse is highlighting, one step we can do is to start thinking and praying of particularly Lord Aniruddha, because he is that form of the Lord who is the controller of the mind. And he will help us ultimately distinguish between the mind and the true self. I will stop there. Any corrections, chastisements? Jai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Gaura Bhumi.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for that very nice presentation. Early on, I was overhearing you. I was still mad, but I was hearing you say ISKCON is that, I don't know where you got the reference from, is the stock exchange.
It's a morning class in Hawaii.
Oh yeah, you did quote that,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll find it for you. Prabhu.
No, it's fine.
Okay, yeah, morning class in Hawaii. Stock exchange.
That's fine. In the material world, the stock exchange is a big gamble, isn't? We see people, isn't they? Because it either appreciates or depreciates, and over time it can just collapse. You know, the big depression in United America during 1929, the Wall Street collapsed. Stockbrokers all. But there's a verse. I was thinking of the verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 40, very famous verse, where Krishna confirms that na abhikraso na sosti pratyavayana vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayato mayato bayat. He's saying in this endeavor of bhakti, in this is emphasizing the point of devotional service, there is no loss or diminution. And even a little performed can save you from the most dangerous type of fear. Yeah, so that stock exchange, spiritual stock exchange, we should all invest in. Everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Very well.
What verse were you asking? Which verse? Oh, today's morning verse. Yeah. 4:24:37. Right. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.